Formula One had a wet and wild race down in Australia. The Xfinity Series saw a familiar face go to victory lane in Las Vegas on Saturday, and Corey Day, still really good at driving sprint cars, and Joe Gibbs might want to reinstate that dirt racing ban immediately. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. I try to talk all motorsports on this channel because I try to consume as much motorsports as possible. On Saturday, IMSA had the Sebring 12 hour in which Porsche Penske went to victory lane, and that's all we're going to talk about because there needs to be a BOP adjustment because they're just entirely too strong, but they're not going to talk about it. So that's all the time we're going to give that series for now. Now, let's get into what happened on Saturday night down in Australia, where Formula One had their season opener, and Lewis Hamilton got the entire Ferrari experience in the first race of the season. An absolutely maddening experience. It's like Stockholm Syndrome, I think, for him at this point. It should be fun. It's not fun. It's torturous for him because an overhyped preseason led to a very underwhelming qualifying session and even more underwhelming race. During the race, Lewis's engineer wouldn't shut up over the radio, just kept keying up the mic, trying to tell him every bit of information like it was the debrief after the race. Anything, you know how like you always hop on calls and you're like, this could have just been an email? That's how Lewis probably had to feel in the race car, where he was like, shut up. Finally, he just told them, stop talking. Leave me be. Let me just go drive the race car, because they were talking to him the entire lap, it felt like. You don't need to give that much information, and that's a complaint seemingly all recent Ferrari drivers have had. Charles has told the pit wall to shut up before because they're giving him too much information. Carlos has as well. Sebastian has before that. Kimi notoriously just doesn't want anybody to talk to him. And now Lewis gets to experience the Ferrari pit wall as well. And then he got his first taste of Ferrari pit strategy too, because on lap 44, when the rains came, everybody else pitted for inters within like a lap or two of that happened. Ferrari, in their infinite wisdom, decided to leave their cars out on slick tires because they didn't think it was going to rain that much, despite telling Charles that it was going to be class 3 rain, to which he responded, oh, it's going to be pretty heavy. So they leave their cars out, and spoiler alert, there's a safety car that comes out because now they're stuck. Now they can't pit. Well, they do pit, and they drop all the way down the running order. And Lewis realizes how far down the running order is, and he keys up the mic and he says, I thought it wasn't going to rain that much. That was a missed opportunity for us. How far back are we? Pit wall responds P9, to which Lewis responds, shit. Sorry, didn't realize my radio was on. And that right there is the culmination of the Ferrari experience that Lewis Hamilton got to experience within 3 days. He watches his old car go on and finish P4 in the race with Kimi Antonelli, and he's probably got to sit back being like, the move to Ferrari seemed like a good one. He's going to get a good company car out of it, but are the frustrations worth it? Because guess what? They're not going to win a World Drivers' Championship this year. They're probably not going to win a World Constructors' Championship either. The drought from 2007 is going to continue once again because Ferrari just can't get out of their own way. It doesn't matter who they bring in. Ferrari is just going to Ferrari at this point, and Lewis got the entire experience there. Ultimately, the race was a crazy one. Formula One season started off with an absolute bang. Lando Norris goes to victory lane, top step of the podium, whatever you want to refer to it as. And for the first time in 1,029 days, somebody not named Max Verstappen is leading the point standings, which is really, really good for, well, parity and everybody's interest in Formula One. McLaren did appear to be on pace probably for a 1-2, but like I said, when those rains came at lap 44, both the McLarens in the third to last corner on the racetrack both go blowing off into the grass there. Turned Albert Park into a slip and slide, and then turned into McLaren and Sons landscaping. Get back onto the racetrack. Lando is able to continue on. Oscar gets onto the racing surface and then slides right back off of it, back into the grass, and then proceeds to take about a minute for him to get it in reverse enough to finally get to the access road, to which he's able to drive off. And then the safety car came, so that allowed everything to kind of bunch back up there. But it was not ideal for Oscar there at the end of it. Should have been a McLaren 1-2, ends up being a McLaren 1-9. Oscar is able to get back into the points with an absolutely incredible move around the outside of Lewis Hamilton in that very quick 8-9 turn. I believe that's what it's numbered as now. Just big balls by Oscar there, but ultimately another year an Australian doesn't win the Australian Grand Prix. Before the race even started, Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bulls car bend it in turn 2 on the formation lap, and then had to walk back to pit lane, head down, crying. Anthony Hamilton, Lewis Hamilton's dad, went out and consoled him, which was a really nice move by him. Obviously, one race isn't going to define your career, but when you're in a junior team like that, you don't want to have stuff like that happen. Carlos Sainz ends up bending it as well. Not ideal for him under the safety car conditions. And it was treacherous there at the beginning. Wet surface, slick racetrack, not ideal for racing conditions. Ultimately, the rains came a little bit later in the race again, kind of throwing a huge wrench into things. Liam Lawson stuffs it, basically doing the same thing that Isaac Hadjar did. He gets stuck down to the barriers, backs it into the wall, and Red Bull's like, listen, we just got Sergio Perez just as a New Zealander and cheaper. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I guess it's great that you're not paying him a ton of money, but he's still getting the same results as Sergio. Fernando Alonso had a very un-Fernando Alonso-like incident where he had a pretty high-speed accident. Let me reverse back because I forgot about the entire Alpine incident with Jack Doohan. He ends up absolutely destroying that race car as well. Not ideal for the other rookie. Bad day to be a rookie. Bad weekend to be a rookie. Ollie Behrman had a lot of incidents. Isaac Hadjar doesn't even get to start the race. Jack Doohan obviously destroying his race car. But hey, at least Kimi Antonelli able to salvage a P4 finish. P16 on the grid all the way up to a P4 finish for him. That is a really, really good rebound and a really impressive performance from the rookie. Obviously, some pit strategy helped him out there at the end of the race. But he had raced his way up into the points and then got himself even further up into the points thanks to the strategy of the team there. But hey, you got to put yourself in position, right, to get things done. So ultimately, really, really fun race. A wild one. It felt like Max might spoil the party there at the end. He was able to latch onto the back of Lando Norris there for the last few laps, just ultimately could never get around him. And the DRS advantage that Red Bull did have back in at the beginning of 2024 and all the way through 2023 is absolutely gone. McLaren is very, very stout. And now we head to China next week, and we'll get to see what type of performance they're going to have there because it's an actual, purpose-built circuit, and I think it's probably going to suit the McLaren very well. So we'll see how all of that plays out. Las Vegas Motor Speedway hosted a doubleheader on Saturday, one on the 1.5 mile big track and then one over on the dirt track. We'll start off with the 1.5 mile race, which was the NASCAR Xfinity Series race from Las Vegas, and a familiar face went to victory lane because Justin Allgaier picked up his first win of the season, first win ever at Las Vegas, leading 102 of the 200 laps in what was a pretty uneventful NASCAR Xfinity Series race in Las Vegas. There was, of course, really good battle. Las Vegas is actually pretty underrated in terms of how good the racing there can be. The racing between Allgaier and Almirola was very good for the latter half of that race. At the start of the race, Justin Allgaier absolutely checked out. He had like an 8-second lead to win stage number 1, lapped all the way up to 23rd in 50 laps. Ultimately, there were only 9 cars left on the lead lap at the end of this race. There was only one natural caution, in this race, and that came on lap 2 when William Sawalich hit the wall and then collects Parker Retzlaff in that as well. Just not an ideal start of the race for those guys. But then the only cautions we had after that were stage break at stage 1 and at the end of stage 2. Really clean Xfinity Series race, really fun race. Junior Motorsport cars are absolute rocket ships right now. They led, I believe, 75% of this race, so hat tip to everybody over there for building very fast race cars. Connor Zilic was up there as well contending. I think he came home P9. Carson Kvapil should have had another probably top 5 finish. Jeb Burton during a green flag pit stop there at the end of the race, the last pit stop of the day for him. He goes to leave the pit box, rips his fuel can out of his fuel man's hand, and it whips that fuel can right underneath the rear of the number 1 car of Carson Kvapil, catches his fuel man right in the ankles, and you see that guy's knees buckle, and then he's able to rebound, but when he goes to put the other fuel can back and plug the second one in, he doesn't get all the fuel in, so ultimately Kvapil has to pit with I don't know if it was 3 laps to go or whatever it ended up being to get more fuel. Unfortunate for him because another good finish ruined by an unfortunate, mistake that wasn't even really their fault there. Thankfully, his fuel man was okay because, Jay McMurray pointed out on the broadcast, when the rear tire changer runs around the back of the car, he had to be like, why the hell is there a fuel can underneath here? What happened? How did this end up down here? Not realizing it came from the pit box behind them. Ultimately, Allgaier goes to victory lane. Kyle Busch was in the booth filling in for Parker Kligerman, who was down running the Sebring 12-hour with IMSA in Florida. Kyle Busch is a natural. Listen, if he wants to retire from driving sometime soon and do broadcasting, let him do it because he was great. He also did commentary for the Flow Racing, on Flow Racing for High Limit on Saturday night as well. Dude's a natural. So, anybody that wants Kyle Busch to fill in, I think everybody would be totally fine with that. Speaking of High Limit, on Saturday night, High Limit finally had their season opener at Las Vegas Motor Speedway on the dirt track. It was supposed to happen on Thursday night, got rained out on Thursday night, supposed to happen on Friday night, got rained out on Friday night. So it finally happened on Saturday. What should have been 2 races ended up being 1. And Corey Day goes back to victory lane with the high limit series. Turns out he hasn't forgotten how to drive a sprint car yet, and he's still really, really good at it. Obviously, if you're a NASCAR fan, you don't watch dirt. He started on pole for the truck race on Friday night. He has a Hendrick development deal. He's 19 years old. Kyle Larson thinks that he's better than him when he was that age. So Jeff Gordon and Rick Hendrick are like, all right, let's sign him up. Let's see what this kid's got. And he goes to victory lane on Saturday night with high limit. And what ended up being a weird race there at the end, because it became a fuel mileage race, because Darren Pittman was leading in the 69K car, which should have been Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell ultimately decided to get out of the seat because he and his crew chief Adam Stevens had agreed that Bell won't race on Saturday nights before a NASCAR Cup Series race on Sunday, just in case he bangs up his head or anything like that. And that would put the team in a really bad position going into Sunday. So he pulled himself out of the car and allowed Darren Pittman to run the car. When it was supposed to be 2 races, Thursday night and Saturday night, that was always the plan, was to allow Pittman to run on Saturday and Bell to run on Thursday. Then people thought that Bell would run on Saturday. That's what all the confusion came from. Pittman runs out of gas, and Kyle Busch is up in the booth like, guys, I think this just became a fuel mileage race, because it looked like the 24 of Rico Abreu had some sort of issues as well. And ultimately, high limit, Mike Hess, the director over there, they throw a caution, end up red flagging the race, open red, allow the teams to come out and refuel the cars because they desperately needed it. And then we go back racing. Day ends up winning the race. Back at the start of the race, Ty Gibbs made the feature in his first ever 410 sprint car race. Great accomplishment for him. And then on lap 1 proceeds to flip 3 times down the backstretch, which probably had Joe Gibbs wanting to reinstate that dirt racing ban immediately. Ty tosses the wheel out of the car, gets out, obviously upset probably with himself there, but a lot of people on the internet, when I posted the clip of him on Twitter, were like trashing Ty, like he can't drive anything. Like, listen, he still made the feature in his first ever 410 sprint car race. Like, that's pretty impressive. He still outran guys in qualifying and his heat, like Tanner Thorson and others, like dudes that have been doing this for a while. So yeah, unfortunate that he flipped over, but it's not because of a lack of talent, lack of experience more than anything, if you want to get down to it. But I mean, he was still wheeling that race car. But yeah, pretty quick flip for him. Not ideal, but I don't think Joe's going to reinstate the dirt ban. Some people took that very seriously on the internet when I said it as well. Clearly, he's not going to. This is what happens in dirt racing. Sometimes you flip over. Thankfully, he was able to walk away. So, yeah, Corey Day goes back to victory lane with high limit. Now, they'll be back in action on Wednesday night at Thunderbolt, March 19th. You can watch that on Flow Racing as well. And, hey, Xfinity, Cup, Truck, all headed down to Homestead next weekend as well. So, let me know in the comments what you thought about the Formula 1 race down in Australia. Lewis Hamilton getting the entire Ferrari experience. Justin Allgaier going back to victory lane, as well as Corey Day, victory lane at high limit as well. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.